Our New Testament lesson this morning comes from 1 John chapter 3, verses 16 through 24, and also from Romans chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. Hear the word. We know love by this, that he had laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for one another. How does God's love abide in anyone who has the world's goods and sees a brother or sister in need and yet refuses help? Little children, let us love, not in word or speech, but in truth and action. And by this we will know that we are from the truth, and we will reassure our hearts before him whenever our hearts condemn us. For God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. Beloved, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have boldness before God, and we receive from him whatever we ask, because we obey his commandments and do what pleases him. And this is his commandment, that we should believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, just as he has commanded us. All who obey his commandments abide in him, and he abides in them. And by this we know that he abides in us by the Spirit that he has given us. And now from Romans, verses 1 through 2. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Thanks be to God.
Pastor David Bruce does not need an introduction, so I'm not going to introduce him, but I'm going to welcome him, which is different. Because we are all very excited and thankful that God is with us in his presence and in his word through David today. David is, for those of you who haven't had the honor to meet him, and for those who will view this later, he has has a degree from Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary and has been in ministry for longer than he may want to admit. I know it's many, many years. We're very thankful. And he also is a licensed counselor, and recently achieved another certification, another level of certification in that area as well. On top of all that, he finds time to pastor Calvary Baptist Church, which is amazing that I can only pastor one. I can only do one job. He's got multiple jobs, and we're very thankful that Pastor David and his ministry joins with ours and journeys together. So we welcome you, David. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Taylor said that everybody knew me already. I hope it's not in infamy, because I'm surely not perfect. And, you know, I do get the credit for having started Loaves and Fishes, but it really wasn't me alone. What I want to tell you about this morning briefly is just how we got started. I want to tell you where we are now and what is going on now, and also what we believe God is leading us to in the future. And that could change according to his will. But let me tell you briefly how we began. Began officially when it was incorporated in 2009 in September. And Sandy Lockwood from Ann Street Methodist Church, and I know she was a lovely woman who was a little pushy. And we love her to death, and sometimes pushiness is what gets the job done. So sometimes you make enemies doing that too. But let me tell you, the results were great. She and it was Phil Bennick from Grace Presbyterian Church. He was on the original board of directors, and so was Fred Simpson from the Intracoastal Waterfolk Ministry. He preaches down at Graydon Paul Gazebo on Sunday mornings. And he was doing his doctorate in ministry, and that was his project, starting a nonprofit. So it all worked out just perfectly. And so we started, and then other people moved away, and I didn't. And there wasn't anything to keep pushing. And so I became the one, my wife and I, Teresa, we kept pushing, and our church kept pushing and trying to make it happen. The original idea was to have churches in Beaufort involved, everyone that would work together, to be involved in community ministry. Started off with a food pantry, just a small thing. And we had people going from church to church to church to church, getting food from different places and telling each church a different story sometimes. And each church had its own small food pantry. So we thought, why don't we just gather it all together and do it in one place? And what a tremendous, idea that was. I mean, it was so simple. But trying to get it accomplished was a little more difficult. But it worked. And it started drawing people together. And so the food turned into, one day somebody said, let's open a thrift shop to have a little more money to buy food with. And we said, no, we can't afford a thrift shop. Well, we did, and it was on Hedrick Street, and rent was about $1,200 a month, and we started making about $2,000 a month, and spent the rest of the money on food, and it kept growing and growing and growing, and we said, oh my goodness, we're outgrowing this place. So we went to the place at the shopping center beside the library, and we asked the owner how much he wanted, and we said, forget it. We're not renting this place. But then we started thinking, if God wants us here, He'll provide. Shopping center property is not cheap, but it is a best location around, and God's made a way for us to pay the rent and to do some ministry too. And sometimes the owner has us do work in the shopping center instead of paying the rent. Like after the hurricane, we demoed a couple of the suites so they could be rebuilt. So that works out. He's a good guy. And then after a little while, we thought, we have people coming to us asking us for money to help pay their electric bills and things like that with some of the surplus funds that we had. And said, why are they the same people coming over and over and over to have their bills paid? And we said, one guy actually told me, he said, could you please just pay my rent so I can buy some drugs? And believe it or not, that actually woke me up. And I said, no, but I can tell you how to get off drugs. But he wasn't really interested in that. But as the years went by, that's what we did. We changed it around and we used that money to help people become drug-free. And not only drug-free because it's a Christ-centered organization, but to help change their lives completely. We do the holistic approach where we are concerned about their education, about what kind of a job they're going to go back to, their health. And so we wind up providing not just treatment for substance abuse issues. Like Taylor said, I was blessed to be able to get a clinical addiction specialist license from the state, and our staff is working towards everybody getting licensed too. Everybody is provisionally licensed now. But that really hasn't done much good because the information I learned has been taught about in the Bible thousands of years ago. I've had lots of experience with psychiatry and psychology, and I've not found any new ideas that didn't come from the Bible originally. That people need to change their thinking before they can change. Who would have thought? And then you can pay someone $200 an hour to tell you that, or you can read the scriptures. Sometimes medication's needed, I know that much too. But nevertheless, so far we've been able to minister to approximately 400 men, maybe just a little bit less, maybe 375, maybe 399, I'm not sure. But by and large, about 2/3 of those men accept what they get, and they change, and they become productive members of society. And some of them hang around. Everybody on our staff has at least one felony. And we don't hire anybody that doesn't have a felony. So if you wanted to work for us for like pay, you're going to have to commit some kind of crime or something. Seriously, I always wanted to be able to be an employer and hire people that couldn't get jobs anywhere else because of their background. But people do change, you know. You don't look at something they did 10 years ago and try to judge their current behavior. That's ridiculous. So that's what we're doing right now. And we have, currently we have 2 homes that we rent for the men. And we tried women and men mixed together for about 3 years. And that if you ever decide to do that, please talk to me first. That's about the worst idea you could ever do. Unless they're like 2 counties apart. Then it'd be okay. Now, we had a lot of success with the females too. A lot of them went back to their families and got things together. Some of them didn't. But now we have two homes, and well, let me just tell you the whole ministry, what's going on right now briefly. Right now, after the whole 10 years of partnership, which before I forget it, I do want to thank you for your partnership, because we could not have done it by ourselves. Calvary couldn't have done it by itself. The Presbyterians couldn't have done it by themselves. We just could not have done it without a collaboration of effort. So it takes all of us. And Ann Street has been phenomenal in support. Maybe not everyone knows exactly what's going on, but you've supported us financially and with food and with manpower. And I have to go off on the trail for just a moment and thank you all for supporting me when my wife was sick and dying, that you supported me like you were my family. A lot of you did. And I feel like you are family. You sent money to help pay to get to Chapel Hill and back for treatments, and I guess what's it called, the Pray and Knit group? Knit and Pray? Well, you did pray over that, and when we got that shawl, Teresa wouldn't let it go. Even all the treatments, everything, even when she was dying, is right beside of her. And she said, I've got to have their prayers with me all the time. So anyway, thank you for helping me personally. Now, what we're doing at the moment is 3 basic ministries. We have food, and that encompasses a weekly food distribution to anyone in the community that qualifies, and everybody qualifies. It is an income-based program because it's government commodities food, 90% of it, but the cap is so high that everybody qualifies. I don't, almost. I come so close to qualifying. But they get food that's nutritional, and they can come every week, and if there's an emergency, they can come anytime. We'll stop what we're doing and we'll go get them a big box of food or something and help them there. So that's one aspect of the food ministry. The other aspect is the Backpack Blessings program, which you guys have been a tremendous help in, collecting food and donating funds to buy the food. We have a person that goes, we found about the cheapest way to do it is just go to Walmart and buy it. Because we've tried every kind of route that we could think, buying wholesale, this and that, and things never would work out correctly. But right now there's about $5,000 in that account, and that's all we use that account for. It goes for absolutely nothing else. Not a penny goes for anything except buying food. churches down east. We take that food, thousands of pounds, and we take it to different churches down east, Harker's Island and beyond, and it has drawn them together over food. Food's got the special power to do that, to draw us together. And it really has. For the first time in years, a couple of years ago, because of the backpack blessings and then working together, every church on the island got together for an Easter service. Every single one of them at the same time in the same place. And I thought, glory, hallelujah. That is wonderful. And they keep working together and they keep doing that. So we distribute those to children that are in danger of being hungry over the weekend. The guidance counselors and teachers identify these students, and I think they just hand them the bag as they get on the bus. They don't identify the student. We don't know who they are. There's no forms to fill out. There's no parental anything that I know of. I think they just hand them the bag and say, have a nice weekend. So it's a couple of days' food, things that children can eat, pop the top on something, throw something in the microwave. Another thing that has happened over the years, I'm chasing another rabbit, but I forgot. I got to tell you this part. A few years ago, just to tell you how Ann Street and Loaves and Fishes partnerships together. We partnership unconsciously. Sometimes we don't even know what we're doing together. Because we had a box truck a few years ago. It was a 92 GMC Top Kick, and it needed a new engine, just blowing oil out of the spark plug holes. So we thought it's about time. So we got a new engine in it, and once it was all said and done, put in and all the peripheries put on it and everything, it's about $4,000. And we had the $4,000, and then we had an emergency come up, and we had to spend some of it. And then all of a sudden, the truck's ready. We said, uh-oh, we don't have the money anymore. Well, what are we going to do? Well, we're just going to pay them a little bit at the time. But I went to the mailbox, and just a day or two within when I was thinking that, there was a check there from Ann Street Methodist for $4,000. And it was some end-of-the-year giving or something that was in surplus, and you guys didn't know anything about the need we had, but it was exactly the same amount. Do you believe in coincidences? I surely don't. I don't think there's any such thing as a coincidence. And I can tell you a dozen stories just like that where you folks have helped us, or where, I don't want to say us and you folks, where we all have worked together to minister to this neighborhood. And I know you do it in other ways too. But what we have going on right now is the food ministry, and then we have the thrift shop where people can come and buy quality items, because you would not believe what some people donate. I mean, pants, like ladies' pants that still have a sticker on them for $90. And my wife almost beat me to death once. I sold that particular pair of pants for about $2. And so that was years ago. And she said, "What is wrong with you?" And so I ran, and I survived. But we do get lots and lots of nice quality clothing. And since the hurricane in September, we've gotten just an overabundance, and it's continuing. We keep getting so much stuff that we had to open another location beside Subway and use that for an outlet, more the houseware type of things. Now, the thrift shop began to produce some funds, and so instead of giving people money and funding the kingdom of Satan, we thought it would be better to help people learn to be self-sufficient, or God-dependent rather, and to be able to get up on their own feet. So we started the Addictions Ministry, and we started it from scratch. We didn't know well, several of us had had many years of experience. I had a lot of experience putting them in jail because I was a deputy sheriff for a couple of years, and then I spent 18 years on the Winston-Salem Police Department. I spent a lot of time in special operations, and went to all the schools they had, and found out that people just keep on committing crimes. You know, you just can't stop it by punitive action. Negative consequences is not enough to make somebody stop. You can't just say, hey, that's bad, stop it. They already know it's bad, but they don't want to stop it. So conventional wisdom is kind of out the door. You have to touch their heart. So we started this ministry and from scratch 5 years ago, and now probably 2/3 of the people that come through, you can't measure success rates. There's not any way to follow people all over the country, and they don't respond back. But we do see a lot of them on Facebook, and a lot of them come back. And a lot of them have moved to the area, and they're now helping us or doing other jobs. But about 2/3 of the men that come through find success. And the only success that we've been able to impart to them is through Christ. Every kind of clinical intervention that you could possibly name may help somebody stop drinking or to stop taking illicit drugs. But you know, you can go to hell sober. So that's really not enough. So we want to minister to the entire person. And when you get that person to change their mind about who they are and start accepting who God says they are, that's when things begin to change. And people, am I running short? Okay. People ask us, why do you keep doing this? There's got to be some angle. Why have you done it for so long? And I've been tempted to give up many times because it got so difficult and felt like we're doing it alone, but we really weren't doing it alone. We have tons and tons of community support, but it's just so hard. And then I have to think back on why we're doing it to start with. The reason we're doing it is the passage that was read from Romans. Do not be conformed to the image of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I want to read you just a little bit from Matthew, and this tells you why we do it as well. But when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed of my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. Sounds kind of like a modern-day thrift shop. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Sounds kind of like addictions to me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger, invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to the least of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me. Then he will also say to those on his left, depart from me, accursed ones, into the eternal fire which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, you did not invite me in. Naked, you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not come visit me. Then they themselves will also answer, Lord, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you? Then he will answer them, truly, I say to you, to the extent you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. These will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So that is the reason we do this. We don't have any other angle. We have no other motivations. Some folks accuse us of having other motivations. They claim we're doing it for money, which I almost spit on them when I start laughing, because anybody is welcome to come and look at our books, especially those of you that with accounting backgrounds. I invite you to come and look at our profit and loss sheets. I invite you to come and examine and see exactly what's going on. You're perfectly free to do that. You just sit down with our accountant and she will lead you through it and show you exactly what's going on. And I want to tell you the reason. Because sometimes people don't believe we're doing it because God has directed us to do it. I'm going to give you one little illustration, then I'm going to go to the future, and then I'll be done. When I was in a law enforcement career, most of my early life, all through the 80s and 90s, I had is about 20 years altogether with sheriff and police. And I'd gone through all kinds of training, all kinds of schools. They sent me to a bunch of FBI schools to learn hostage negotiating. And that was just, that was just a bomb. That was so much fun to do that. I mean, except when somebody killed the hostage. But that was not very good. Now, I had all of that going on, every certification you could name. I was a basic training instructor and did all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, about 1997, it's like I started losing interest in it. And all I could think about was the gospel. I would preach to a lot of people in my back seat in handcuffs. And they couldn't get out. They had to listen to me. I'm going to say, listen, man, what you need is Jesus. Here, let me read this to you out of the Bible. And they're like, please be quiet. I said, no, you're going to sit there till I finish. So when it came time to leave, I left. I felt the call to go get a higher education, to get some seminary training. And I was going to have to quit my job, lose all my insurance benefits, lose a lot of my retirement, lose, most everything. So I went home and told my wife, Teresa, I said, you know what, I think God's telling me, I feel it in my heart that I need to leave this career and go to seminary. And she said, well, I was wondering when he's going to tell you about it. I said, we're on the same page. That's right. And so the rest is history. But I get people who tell me, they say, why did you leave Winston-Salem and come to Beaufort almost 16 years ago? I said, because God drew me. I left a good career to do this. And they said, oh, really? No, you made more money when you got here? I said, no. I felt God pulling me. Oh, you just got tired of police work? Is that what it was? No, I felt God pulling me. Well, it must have been something. Why did you really leave? Because God was pulling me. That's why. It's so hard, even for church folks, to understand that there's no other angle. Because church folks across the land have one foot in the world and one foot in the church, and we operate the church according to worldly principles many times. And so to say God is moving to do this is foreign to even many Christians. Would you believe that? It truly is. Folks think there's another angle. You've got to be doing it for another reason, and the answer is absolutely not. The Father is leading us. He's also leading us into the future. We minister to these men in ways that other secular programs do not. Some folks look at it as a purely medical issue. I wonder if someone who is prone to lie, if that is a purely medical issue. If someone who is prone to gossip and create dissension, I wonder if that's a purely medical issue. A special needs fellow in our church once told me he was going to the doctor to get a pill so he could stop cursing. And I said, George, it doesn't really work that way, buddy. The disease model has not been around very long, and it feels like a disease, but we believe that it's worshiping at the wrong altar. Someone may be born with a predisposition for it, and once they take that first drink, bam, they're off to the races. Another person can take a drink, no problem at all. They don't need another one for a year, or this. They just don't really care that much. And some folks are born with predispositions for other sins. Things are passed down. Abuse is passed down through families, it seems like. So to call it purely a medical problem is to neglect to see the actual spiritual underlying problem, which is what we treat. And a lot of people come to us with various diagnoses received from various psychologists, psychiatrists, all kinds of personality disorders, and we've seen them leave without those diagnoses. And it's always been said personality disorders can't be treated, and I beg to differ because I've seen them vanish through the power of the Holy Spirit. I've seen people leave totally healed of everything that ails them. So we minister to the entire person. We get them medical care, dental care, if they can't afford it. Most people struggle with addictions, have terrible teeth, and they have terrible health. And we can't afford to do that, but we do it anyway. They can't afford to pay for it, so we pay for it anyway. And sometimes we pay for things out of our own pocket. And, you know, our personal pockets get thin pretty fast when you're trying to pay a dentist to do some oral surgery, or you're trying to pay for a hip replacement for somebody who's lost part of the bone in their hip. But vocational rehab, various agencies, they do help out a lot. But the reason we need funds is the thrift shop holds its own. We don't need funds for that. The food holds its own. We don't really need any funds for that. What we need funds for are to help men who can't help themselves. Men who will go for years and years and years with horrible abscesses with their teeth, horrible pain they have to live through and self-medicate it because they can't afford to get any treatment. But you can steal and get money for drugs, but you can't steal and get a dentist to treat you. So they really don't have anything. And if we could get someone, you, and other agencies, other people to help sponsor men, that would be a tremendous asset. Am I over yet? All right, one more minute and I'm done. If we could get people to sponsor human beings and to help us pay for their complete holistic recovery, not to get them on some substitute drug, but to get them completely drug-free, completely committed to Christ, living a fruitful, godly life. And to do that, it takes money. There aren't a lot of doctors who'll do things for free. There aren't a lot of dentists who'll do things for free. Kerry Willis does things for free. I'm not promoting Kerry. Some of you know him, some of you don't. But I am promoting his benevolent attitude because he sees our guys for free if they don't have insurance. But then we've got medication to pay for, and they can't pay for it. Antibiotics. We have people that are truly bipolar. They're truly struggling. They need medication. They can't pay for it. So we buy it. And that means our funds dwindle because we don't have the money. We don't charge them enough. We only charge $500 a month. And that doesn't even begin to cover all the expenses. And 50% of them don't pay that. 50% of them don't pay anything at all because we just can't turn people away. So anyway, I want to leave you with that we are trying to raise some funds. We're trying to raise about $6,000 to sponsor a person all year long or to sponsor several people part of the year. to help them get back on their feet, get back into the workforce, and be productive, and to become good husbands and good fathers. So that's what it's about. That's what Loaves and Fishes is about. And that's what our partnership has been about for 10 years. And without you and all the other partners, it would not have been possible. So you, when I say you, I mean the whole entire N Street Methodist Church, are part of helping people get their lives back together. And I know you do it in all kinds of other ways, ministries all over the place, not just local ministry. But I just want to thank you and praise God that we formed this partnership 10 years ago.